Hi, welcome to Find Your Flock. I'm your host, Dr. Sandra Clavijo from the Schaefer School of Engineering and Science at Stevens. If you're unsure about which engineering major to choose, you're in the right place. Each episode, I chat with students and recent grads about their favorite classes, internships, professors, and more, helping you discover the path that fits you. Today's guest is a recent graduate from environmental engineering, Sabrina Benayoun. Welcome to Find Your Flock.
Thank you, Sandra. Really excited and happy to be here and chat a little bit about my experience.
Excellent. We like to get started with learning a little bit about yourself. Can you tell us a little bit and what you studied at Stevens?
Yeah, absolutely. So my life story is a little complicated. I was born in Florida, but my parents are actually from Brazil. So as a baby, I moved back to Brazil for a few years, and then I moved to Long Island, New York when I was about 5 years old. Did all my schooling there. That's why you don't hear any kind of an accent. So I grew up pretty much all of my life in New York. And then, of course, I went to Stevens for my undergrad and did my master's as well. My undergrad was in environmental engineering with a minor in green engineering, and my master's was in sustainability management.
And did you always know you wanted to study environmental engineering?
Not exactly. Finding out that I wanted to study environmental engineering was also a little bit of a journey. So in high school, I really thought that I wanted to go into architecture. And I went to a high school that offered a wide range of classes. And one of them was like an engineering design spine of courses. And the first basic level class was like an intro to engineering, and the second level class was a civil engineering and architecture class. So I really wanted to just take that civil engineering and architecture class because I thought I wanted to be an architect, and that was it. So I tried to bypass that prerequisite. And my high school counselor said, listen, we can let you bypass it, but what's the harm in taking an intro to engineering class? So I kind of rolled my eyes and I said, fine, I'll take this class. I took the class, I thought it was interesting. I think it helped me to open up my mind to a different way of thinking about problems, but I still was dead set on this idea of being an architect. After my junior year, when I was able to take that civil engineering and architecture course, that summer I did two different things. One was a 2-week pre-college program at Manhattan College that just gave me an overview of all different types of disciplines of engineering. And the other one was a 3-week shadowing kind of internship with an architect in Manhattan. And that was a really great experience. Learned a lot. Also learned that I, in fact, did not want to be an architect. But during that 2-week engineering course, I learned a little bit more about geotech engineering and environmental engineering. And I kind of saw that as a space that I thought I could possibly thrive in. And my senior year of high school, I took AP Environmental Science, and it really, really enjoyed it, as well as the last engineering course of that engineering design spine. So I kind of like combined those two, the engineering courses and the environmental science that I really fell in love with, and thought, okay, I want to do environmental engineering.
Excellent. So for some of our listeners who may not know what engineering is, can you explain it to somebody who's never heard of environmental engineering before?
Yeah, so I think environmental engineering, when you're going through the courses, it can be quite specific, but I've learned that it can be actually pretty broad. So I think environmental engineering is looking at different problems that have to do with the planet, whether that's in terms of water, whether that's in terms of land or energy, and thinking about critical thinking ways of solving those issues with the planet.
Excellent. So speaking about the classes that you took, what was your favorite class that you took at Stevens in environmental engineering?
So I would say not quite environmental engineering, but for my minor of green engineering, the first class I took for that was Perspectives in Environmental Management. And I really, really enjoyed that course. I felt like it gave me a really holistic view of how environmental engineering could be applied to the world and to actual cities and communities. It made everything, all the technical and chemical information that I was learning, this class, I felt like made everything a bit more tangible and gave me ways to kind of really how I wanted to apply it to the real world. And that's kind of what led me down the path of later pursuing the master's in sustainability management. I had a great professor. I think he saw of a lot of potential in me, and he really saw the passion that I had for what I was learning. And so I think having somebody that recognized that passion in me and wanted to create an environment where I could excel also meant a lot to me. So not only was the course content interesting in that class, but also I think like the people I worked with and the professor himself like really, really helped me to thrive in that environment.
Do you want to call out and give a special shout out to that professor?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Dibs Sarkar. Dibs, I hope you're listening to this. He is awesome. When I got my job out of grad school, I gave him a call. I said, Dibs, I did it. So he's a great guy. He's really supported me throughout my whole journey and yeah, given me a lot of motivation to keep going through some of the tough moments.
Speaking of tough moments, good transition. I was going to ask, what was the hardest class you took and how did you get through it?
Yeah, hardest class I took by far it was, I think the class code is CHE 210. It was a chemical engineering process analysis with Professor Lawal, who he was a difficult professor, but I think he really tested me in a good way. He's a little bit tricky. He likes to ask trick questions to his students. But I think similarly to Dibs, I felt like he kind of like saw a passion in me. And to be honest, like that was just not a class I excelled in. I was not good at it. I didn't understand a lot of the concepts. I did so much studying, so much reviewing, but it was something that just didn't quite click in me. And I think something that helped me that a lot of people have a hard time doing is being able to say when you don't know how to do something. I think it's really difficult to when you're sitting in a class, when you think all of the people surrounding you like know what they're doing, but you don't know what you're doing. It's really hard to come out and say, I don't know the answer to this question. And when I was sitting in that class and I was asked questions that I didn't know the answer to, there was no way of me getting around or trying to pretend like I knew the answer because I just didn't. So I think that was a class where I learned that it's okay to say, I don't know or I'm confused. And that's just not something you hear often. So I think that is something that helped me to move forward along in that class is being able to say I don't know and learn from the people around me and make it clear to the professor like, hey, maybe not everyone knows what's going on and can you review this a little bit more. That was I think that's something that's like a little challenging to be able to say is I don't know because you're kind of scared of what other people may think, but there's usually someone else that also doesn't know.
That's great advice. Thank you for sharing that with us. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about maybe some of the clubs or extracurriculars that you were involved in while you were studying. Anything related to environmental engineering, or did you go into a completely different uh, type of clubs and hobbies?
Yeah, so I was involved quite a bit, especially in undergrad, to the point where I look back and I'm like, how did I do all of that? I was like, I was taking a lot of courses and quite involved in keeping up with social life. I think that's like a common theme you see when you graduate, you look back a little bit and you're like, how did I manage all of that? But I was involved in Greek life. I was in Sigma Delta Tau. During my time there, I was a vice president of new member education. I think that organization gave me a space to really I think to really be proud of my accomplishments. I felt really celebrated as not only an engineer, but as a woman in engineering. I thought it was like a really comfortable space. And another thing that's hard, I think, is being able to say that you're proud of yourself and you know like be proud of the accomplishments that you've done that you've achieved. And I think that was a space that where everyone was encouraged to celebrate their achievements, and it gave me a lot of confidence. I was involved in Hillel, which is the Jewish organization on campus. My Jewish identity is really important to me. I grew up with it, so it was nice to have a space in on campus to really celebrate that. I was president of a club my senior year. I was also involved in SEEPS, which is the Society of Environmental Engineering Professionals. So that was a little bit more environmental engineering focused, of course, and I was the vice president of that, I think also my senior year. So that was great for networking, for having like alumni events and understanding different career pathways that were possibilities for me. Uh, I think I think that those were the ones I was involved in. And you know, like earlier on in college, I did some music things. I played some shows with a friend of mine, did open mic nights. Yeah, I was quite involved. I think Stevens does offer quite a bit of opportunity to get involved around campus, and I think it's really important to do so. You're not only developing yourself educationally and professionally, but also socially and doing fun things. Like a big part of being in college is doing those fun things and having experiences and putting yourself out there. So I think take advantage of all those clubs. There's so many. You're bound to find something that you like.
Definitely. Um, I know you shared earlier about the experience shadowing an architect. I wasn't sure if you wanted to share any more information about other internships or opportunities that you took advantage of in terms of, career positions. Or if you want, I think you're gainfully employed right now, so you can also tell us about that job if you'd like, a little bit about, your working experiences. I think students always love to hear about jobs and job opportunities and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had I would say, a wide range of internships throughout my undergrad and grad school. So my first internship was an internship abroad where I worked with a green building consulting firm. So I essentially the goal was to help like developers of buildings maximize that building sustainability score. So we would do different modeling and analyses of like the solar angle that hits the buildings, the shadows of buildings surrounding to identify where would solar panels best make sense in this case scenario. That was a great experience. Really enjoyed that. I also had an environmental engineering internship with the Port Authority. So that was probably the biggest company that I worked with. Really cool experience, really easy commute because I was living in Hoboken. I just had to take the path to World Trade Center. So that was a really, I think, like a cool experience for me. Also learned a lot. I did feel like in that space because it was like much larger scale public projects. I think I realized that that's something those large scale public projects are a little bit difficult for me because I feel like I would have to spend years and years at a company in order to really see like my work come to fruition. So I wasn't sure if I would want to work in a company of that magnitude. But that was a great experience regardless. I always say that like if you do an internship and you don't like it, it's just as important to realize that you don't like something as it is to realize that you do like something. Like the only way you can really find out what you want to do is almost like process of elimination, right? It's very rare that one person does an internship for the first time and they're like, this is it, this is what I want to do. But even so, it's important to keep your options open when you're job hunting. And then during my master's, I worked at a beauty company called Pros. They were like past startup, I would say, like roughly 300 employees. And I worked directly under our VP of Social Impact and Sustainability as an intern. I was there for just about a year, focusing on different things like waste mitigation strategy, carbon accounting, stakeholder education and communication. And that was really cool because I was learning how to take a lot of the technical information that I had learned in my undergrad and throughout some of my master's courses. And I learned how to make it digestible for like the common person to understand because not everyone that's going to be reading publications about sustainability is going to know what they're reading unless you're able to translate it in a way that makes sense to them. So that could be something like contextualizing a data point. So if I'm talking about X amount of carbon emissions that are being produced by a certain process, oftentimes people are not going to know what that X number actually means. But if you compare it to, for example, that's the same as me taking 100 flights from New York to France, there and back. Someone might say, oh, wow, that's a lot. So I think that that kind of like communication aspect coming from a technical background is often overlooked, but I've learned the true importance of it. So that was really valuable. And then my job now, so after I finished my master's degree, which was last May, I took some time off. I made a choice. I took some time off and I did some traveling. I did my first solo backpacking trip. I went to Guatemala for a month, and then I spent a couple of weeks in Brazil for my sister's wedding. So I took that time off knowing that there was a risk that maybe I wouldn't be able to start a job immediately when I came back. Now, I did a lot of job applications before I left. And when I was there were times where I stressed and I reminded myself, even if it takes a few more months, like I will land a job. So once I came back from my travels, I was kind of hit with that reality of like, I don't have a job right now. And that was really hard for me for a couple weeks. I was applying and I was kind of like dragging myself a little bit to apply to these jobs. And I don't know, one day I had this like turning point, this mental turning point where I was like, I am applying for jobs. I'm qualified. I have an engineering degree, I have a master's degree, and I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing. At the time, I also took on a retail job just to kind of like keep myself busy and continue to pay my bills. There were a couple moments where it was hard, where I was like, I'm not working in what I want to be working in, but I kind of like pushed through. And I think that mentality of like, I'm not doing anything wrong. I didn't make a wrong choice. I just made something that's different than the path that a lot of people end up taking. So once I kind of like hit that reality of like I'm doing okay, I think mentally it was a lot easier to continue applying for jobs. And I eventually landed one. So I got my job offer in December, and I'm working for a very small consulting company. They're actually based out of the Midwest. They're called Five Lakes Energy. And they do a lot of work around like the intersection of policy and environmentalism. And my official title is Industrial Decarbonization Consultant. So I work on sustainability initiatives on the industrial level, primarily in the Midwest. I've been there I started in January, so I've been there right around 2.5 months. I've learned so much, and I had not imagined myself going into this kind of position. But part of it is because I didn't know it existed. I think that's part of the job search, is you're reading job titles and you're like, oh, this is a thing. And that was one of those cases where I was like, oh, this is a thing. And as they interviewed me, I asked them plenty of questions. I was basically interviewing them. And I found that it's been a really good fit for me.
That's amazing. What does a typical day look like for you?
So I am fully remote. I work from home totally, and that's actually everyone in the company. So the company started about 15 years ago, and they haven't had an office. They've been fully remote, like remotely operational since they started. So it's been a little bit interesting. I was lucky though. My first week on the job was actually our company retreat. So I was able to meet everyone in person, which gave me a really good sense of like the camaraderie of how people interact with each other, of our senses of humor, and it makes it a lot easier to hop on a call with somebody having met them in person previously. But a typical day in my life, I usually wake up and I like to work out in the morning if I can. So usually go and do a workout class. The work from home schedule is nice because it's a little bit flexible as well. So I have like my meetings that I attend to. I have several meetings every week, some days more than the others. But I usually will like schedule my workouts or my personal life like around those meetings. But say I have like 3 meetings on a Wednesday morning and I'm done with those meetings at 1 p.m. If I want to take a couple of hours off to go make lunch, to go take a walk, whatever it is, I can do so and then come back and just log on from whatever 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. if I want. So it does vary day by day. That I do consider myself very lucky to have that kind of work environment because I know that that's not particularly common. But it works really well for me. I think I was a little bit concerned about like if because I think a lot of times your work life has interacts with your social life a little bit. Like you would want to be friends with your coworkers. But I'm still able to chat with my coworkers online or hop on a call. I know like every month we have like a Women of Five Lakes call where we all kind of chat with each other and see how we're doing, checking in. Um, but yeah, I found that I thought that maybe I would miss that kind of like work environment, in-person work environment a little bit because I have had that in the past. Um, but I don't know. I have friends outside of work. So it makes it easy to still have a social life and work remotely.
Excellent. So interesting. So looking back, what advice would you give to current first year students, or incoming students about choosing between different engineering majors? You've already dropped a whole bunch of great ideas for people figuring out what you don't like to do, but any other advice you would give to our incoming students and our currently undecided students trying to decide?
Yeah, sure. I would say it's okay if you don't know exactly what you want to do yet. College is a time where you start to figure these things out. take different classes. If you think you have an interest in sustainability, take a sustainability class. You have electives for those reasons. And I guess keep an open mind because sometimes you go into college thinking that you want to do a certain thing and you realize that you don't necessarily want to do it. And I think for some people that can cause a lot of confusion, a lot of loss, and those feelings are totally normal. But I do think going in with a mindset of, I'm going to learn a lot of new things, and there's a chance that my projected trajectory will change. I think is a little bit, I think it's kind of helpful. So I would say keep an open mind, try new things, and kind of see what happens from there.
Excellent. And we're going to end every podcast with give us your best pitch. Why should someone choose environmental engineering?
This is a good one. I think somebody should choose environmental engineering because it's a really impactful major. You can do so many things with it. It's a much more versatile degree than people think it is. I also think that the major itself has improved significantly. I've been consistently in touch with the chair of the department, and he's talked about some of the changes that have been made. And I give two thumbs up because it was very different from when I started. There's a lot you can learn there. There's a lot you can do with it. I think just keeping, like I said, an open mind can allow you to go so many different pathways, and we have to save the environment, right? Somebody has to do it.
Love that. Thank you so much. That's all the time we have for today. I want to give a big thank you to our guest, Sabrina. Thank you for sharing your journey and your wisdom with us on Find Your Flock. If you're feeling inspired, confused, or wanting to learn more about engineering, you're in the right place. We plan to deliver these weekly and help students start learning. So thank you very much.
Thank you.